This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube, and I'm going to review the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter this week. This was his awards edition, and I am going to do a second video about the awards in a following video, and the link to that is going to be in the description. So let's get into the actual news of the week so far. Undertaker's third wife, Michelle McCool, is going to be going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. That has been confirmed. Now that they're no longer under contract with AEW, apparently it's only going to be a matter of time before Malachi Black and Miro end up back in WWE. Miro has put out a picture with Sheamus. The thing about Ricky Starks, who debuted in NXT this week, he had fans really wanting him to be used, and they were blocking him from doing anything for almost a year. And he got a good reaction on NXT. While Miro was not used for like 2 years in AEW, I don't know if there was any fans saying, "Oh my god," like, other than it's stupid to pay this guy over $1 million and not use him. I don't think there was that much fans saying, "Oh my god, we need to see Miro back." It's not like he was a hot talent. At the time, they stopped using him because obviously, if he's that hot, in theory, they would keep using him. And he didn't exactly have a hot ending in WWE. His WWE end was his wife making out with Bobby Lashley while he's lying there beat up on the ground. So, well, they'll get an initial pop to bring him back with Rusev, and they might even bring his ex-wife back. He did end up breaking up with Lana, but apparently, according to Meltzer, it's possible they might bring her back. I mean, I don't see him being in the mix with the top people. I can see that getting some buzz, and I doubt they're going to be paying him in the millions per year like AEW was. But um, there you go. Good luck to him. For Malachi Black, he only lost like 2 times in his whole AEW career. He hasn't been used for a while, but he was always used well, I would say. It's not like he wasn't presented ever as a top guy, so it's not like it's not like Ricky Starks where the fans wanted more out of him, where like they didn't necessarily get more. For some reason, there was some sort of issue with him where Tony Khan would rather him just sit out and get paid. I do see if they ever let Phoenix go, which doesn't look like they're letting Ray Phoenix go, but I can see Phoenix coming in with a bit of a buzz about him, since Penta has had some success since joining, and he's one the fans would like to see, similar to Ricky Starks. But as far as Miro goes, I don't think there's a whole bunch of, it will be like, oh my God, Rusev is back. I He's been off TV for so long, and he hasn't really done anything relevant for so long. The last memorable thing is his wife making out on top of him with another guy, and they ended up getting divorced. It's not like he's the coolest person in the world, but good for him for making millions for doing nothing. WWE's Elimination Chamber coming up in less than a month at Rogers Center in Toronto only has 27,738 tickets out for John Cena. What's being billed as John Cena's final match in Toronto. The interesting thing about that is WrestleMania 6 in Toronto, featuring Hogan against Warrior, had 67,678 fans in attendance. And we always keep hearing how hot WW is these days. They haven't been to Canada at all since Survivor Series. There's been nothing in Canada. They used to come all the time to Canada, not just the major cities, but the B and C cities as well. They're hardly coming now. For people saying, "Oh, it's hot, hot, instant sellouts." Well, for one thing, I mean, they're making more money than ever, They are making more money than ever. But to me, Toronto, one of the biggest wrestling cities in the world, known as a wrestling city for John Cena's last match. That's not a great pre-sale for your go home WrestleMania pay-per-view, from what I understand it is, anyways. Linda McMahon had her Senate confirmation hearing February 13th. Triple H, Stephanie, and Shane McMahon were all there, along with Marissa McMahon, who I would guess is Shane's wife. Vince McMahon, of course, was not there. She was asked various questions about the Ring Boys lawsuit, and there was a Democratic senator there that said she was concerned about her handling of sexual assault claims on school campuses in her role if she does become head of the Department of Education, uh, due to the Ring Boys lawsuit, which of course involved former WWE homosexual agents allegedly doing inappropriate things with young ring boys that they used to use in the late 80s. I believe it went on until the early 90s. So a lot of people think that case, which is going on in Maryland, is going to be settled. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, the actual numbers for Raw on Netflix are lower than Meltzer or anyone had expected or estimated. After watching the first episode, I can see why they are low. It was like there's advertising on Netflix. You watch Netflix to not get the advertising, and you can watch all the highlights on YouTube if you have YouTube Premium with no advertising and not all the downtime in between matches. Again, Nick Khan, great for him for getting all these deals, but the product isn't. You cannot compare this to the Golden Era product. I'm sorry, but you can't. And like, if you look at wrestling, one of the things I noticed in the Attitude Era was how cool it was. Because I was a fan of wrestling in the late 80s when it was cool. In the early 90s, it was not cool. And I remember like the sign of when it was about to get cool again. In the early 90s, you'd be made fun of. I remember getting in fights at school for wearing wrestling shirts. It was not cool. Then there was a point in time where the cool kids started watching wrestling. And looking at Ricky Stark's debut, look at the crowd around him. Look at the crowd around him. I mean, I'm not holding anything against middle aged, balding men. I might not be as overweight as some of these people, and I don't care if you're overweight. I'm just saying this crowd is not like, first of all, I don't see any kids in the crowd. They're either hidden, and like it's like 98% obese middle aged men. So stop telling me wrestling is so hot. If it was hot, it would be more of like a rock concert audience with younger kids, little kids, hot women everywhere. I'm sorry, but like stop trying to tell me this is a boom period. It's making more money than ever due to the availability of other revenue streams. And they're very smart. The business itself is doing better than ever, but stop trying to tell me it's considered cool when like I'm sorry, but like look at the audience members. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying I'm the coolest person in the world. I'm definitely not. But I just remember in the WCW days, you'd be like, let's look at the college watch parties, and there's all these young kids with girls watching Nitro in their dorms and stuff. I mean, this audience, I'm sorry, guys, it's not, there's nothing cool about this audience. I'm sorry. I'll get heat for that. But I'm a heel. Apparently, WrestleMania next year is going to be in New Orleans. Evolve, which is going to be the new to be WWE Performance Center show. It is. It's already been taped at the Performance Center. I don't know if the crowd is all WWE employees or paid actors or whatever, but apparently it's very limited who can attend because they didn't want any info out about the shows, and they've taped 7 weeks of shows and no info has come out yet. So you'd have to assume that they're not just letting regular fans in. Here's a show that I just don't get. WWE Future Legends and Greats on A&E. Which, by the way, name me one NXT talent that was born and bred in the Performance Center that has legitimately become a superstar. Because Cody Rhodes, if you want to call him a legit superstar, he did not come from the Performance Center. Roman Reigns came from FCW. Brock Lesnar came from OVW. John Cena came from Rick Bassman's UPW and OVW. There still has not been like a true superstar from this NXT Performance Center that has transcended wrestling. So, anyways, here's the thing about this show. It's like a Tough Enough type show, but it's all people that already have contracts. And unlike Tough Enough, where the cool thing about it and one thing that's missing in wrestling is it's people that wanted to be wrestlers all their lives getting their chance to be a wrestler. And I did like wrestling in the past, or like the Tough Enough shows for that reason. I don't want to see a show of people that already have contracts. Like, to me, it's just like they already have contracts. And most of these people in this apparently are like former college athletes that didn't. Who knows if they'd even pay to train to be a wrestler if they weren't being paid to train. So to me, it's just like I got zero interest in watching that show. Apparently, as far as the AOP being released last week, they were both signed around 2014. McMahon released them around the time of COVID, but they were Triple H guys. He brought them back despite not doing anything at the time they were released. Apparently, they were signed in 2022, but did not do anything until December 2023. So they were released along with Paul Ellering, who is now 71. Paul Ellering has never really been over in WWE. He was over as the Road Warriors manager in AWA, but if you look at his runs with Rocco, you could hardly say that was good. When they had the puppet, which apparently was Ellering's idea for the Road Warriors, then they had him with the Harris twins, which people don't even remember. It was so forgettable. And then the stuff with the AOP was pretty lame. Gallows and Anderson and Sonya Deville were also among the notable names released last week. Bill 80, 77, and Barry Darsow, 65, got a WWE Legends deal, as Grandma Daisy mentions here. Congratulations to them. WWE SmackDown in Memphis last week had 8,900 total in a 19,000 seat building. Raw this past Monday in Nashville, 12,256 in a 20,000 seat building. AEW Collision and Ring of Honor tapings, Rosenberg, Texas, 10,000 seat building. Last weekend had 2,879, including comps, in the 10,000 seat building. For some reason, at some point, according to what I heard Meltzer say on the Wrestling Observer Radio, even though this was about a quarter full, Tony Khan came out and claimed it was a sellout. Again, if you want to say it's sold out based on the amount of, and we're just going to curtain off 3/4 of the arena and call it a sellout. I'm sick of hearing about these sellouts where the arenas aren't actually close to being sold out. I miss the days when they would say a sellout of Madison Square Garden was 19 or 20,000, a legitimate sellout. AEW Dynamite Cedar Park, Texas this week, which was the lowest rated Dynamite 2025, 2,800 fans in an 8,000 seat arena. It was MJF's first AEW match of 2025. Supposedly, he could be making massive money. He seems to be making at least 5 million a year legitimate. It could be much more than that. Some people allege, but it has not been confirmed. He could be making like ridiculously huge money. He only wrestled 4 times last year. One of the issues with AEW is they don't use their wrestlers hardly ever, so they don't sustain their popularity. Well, you can say MJF is one of the top stars in AEW. You can't really say he's a hot talent right now. And it's because he's hardly wrestled. Can you imagine if when Steve Austin was hot, they just had him stop wrestling or he only regularly appeared? He was on all the shows. And on the shows that he wasn't on, they were showing highlights of. Like they just do a terrible booking job in that company. And their wrestlers are lucky. They're very lucky. Yes, DK, Trick Williams, Tiffany Stratton, and Braun Breaker are potential names that could reach like the Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns level. I don't know much about Trick Williams, but I've heard that name being thrown around a lot. I think Braun Breaker has the most potential of any of the younger talent I've seen. I think they should have brought him in more with the Goldberg push than have him job to Sami Zayn and stuff. I think that took away a lot of his momentum. But he still has a long career ahead of him. But yeah, for their future legends and great show, there hasn't been one person trained in the Performance Center. The last major star, in all honesty, I don't think Roman Reigns has eclipsed the fame of John Cena. As far as like a mainstream person that your average person knows, most people, in fact, there's women I've been talking to that could tell you that know about sports but don't know but necessarily about wrestling, that could tell you who John Cena is, but definitely could not tell you who Roman Reigns is. Women that are boxing fans, for instance, then they could tell you who The Rock is, they could tell you who Austin is, they could tell you who Hulk Hogan is, they could tell you who Ric Flair is, but then they couldn't tell you who Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are. I will say that Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes are like the closest, but again, they're from FCW, and Brock Lesnar is another mainstream guy. But I'm just being honest. Grandma Daisy, no, I don't think Public Enemy will ever go in the WWE Hall of Fame ever. They did not like them. They had Bradshaw and Ron Simmons beat them up. And they didn't have much of a WCW run. They were mostly popular in ECW. So I'll be right back with a review of the actual Wrestling Observer Reward Awards, which I don't know really who votes on them, but let's just say a lot of them are highly controversial. So I'll be right back to get into those. The link to that stream is in the description.